Only 10% of students got these AZ-104 questions right in the recent exam. Let's see if you're among the top scorers. Welcome back to Tech Cloud Solutions. This is episode 10, and if you missed the previous video, watch our entire AZ-104 course. Link is in the description. Question 56. You have an Azure subscription that contains a storage account named Storage. The storage account contains a blob that stores images. Client access to Storage 1 is granted by using a shared access signature. You need to ensure that users receive a warning message when they generate a SAS that exceeds a 7-day time period. What should you do for storage? The options are A. Enable a read-only lock. B. Configure an alert rule. C. Add a lifecycle management rule. D. Set allow recommended upper limit for shared access signature, SAS, expiry interval to enabled. This question tests your knowledge of Azure storage security features, specifically how to control and warn users about SAS token expiration periods. You need to identify the proper storage account setting that triggers warning messages when users create SAS tokens with expiration times that exceed your recommended security policy, 7 days in this case. Correct answer. Set allow recommended upper limit for shared access signature, SAS, expiry interval to enabled. To ensure users receive warnings when creating SAS tokens exceeding 7 days, you need to configure the SAS expiration policy by setting Allow Recommended Upper Limit for Shared Access Signature, SAS Expiry Interval, to Enabled on the storage account. Here's how this works. Azure Storage supports SAS expiration policies that let you specify a recommended upper limit, maximum validity interval for SAS tokens. When you enable this setting and configure a 7-day maximum interval, the system monitors all newly created SAS tokens. If any user creates a SAS with an expiration that exceeds 7 days, Azure automatically displays a warning message showing the recommended maximum interval. The key point is that this policy doesn't block users from creating longer-lasting SAS tokens. It's a recommendation, not an enforcement. Users will see the warning along with the recommended maximum interval, but they can still proceed if needed. This approach balances security best practices with operational flexibility. Additionally, if you configure Azure Monitor diagnostic logging, Azure Storage writes messages to the SAS expiry status property whenever users create or use SAS tokens that exceed the recommended interval. Why the other options are incorrect. A. Enable a read-only lock. Resource locks prevent accidental deletion or modification of Azure resources, but they don't control SAS token generation or provide warnings about expiration periods. B. Configure an alert rule. Azure Monitor alert rules notify you about resource metrics or log events, but they can't proactively warn users during SAS token creation. Alerts are reactive, not preventive. C. Add a lifecycle management rule. Lifecycle management automatically moves or deletes blobs based on age or access patterns. It has nothing to do with SAS token expiration policies or user warnings during token generation. Quick takeaway. Want warnings for long-lasting SAS tokens? Enable the Allow Recommended Upper Limit for SAS expiry interval setting. Set your maximum, like 7 days, and users get warned when they exceed it during SAS creation. If this video is helping you, support us by hitting the like button. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Question 57. You have an Azure subscription linked to a hybrid Microsoft Entra tenant. The tenant contains the users shown in the following table. You create the Azure Files shares shown in the following table. You configure identity-based access for Contoso 2024 as shown in the following exhibit. For the following statement, select Yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select No. User 1 can access the content in Share 1. The options are A, yes, B, no. This question tests your understanding of Azure Files Active Directory authentication requirements, specifically whether users need on-premises sync enabled to access file shares. Looking at the images, User 1 has on-premises sync enabled equals no, while Share 1 is in Contoso 2024, which has Active Directory authentication enabled. Correct answer? No. No. User 1 cannot access Share 1 because User 1 does not have on-premises sync enabled, which is a mandatory requirement for accessing Azure files with Active Directory Domain Services authentication. Here's why this fails. Looking at the configuration, Contoso 2024 has Active Directory authentication enabled, shown in the exhibit. When you enable on-premises ADDS authentication for Azure files, identities must be synced from on-premises Active Directory to Microsoft Entra ID using Azure AD Connect or Microsoft Entra Connect Cloud Sync. The table shows that user 1 has on-premises sync enabled equals no, meaning user 1 is a cloud-only identity that exists only in Microsoft Entra ID and is not synced from on-premises AD. The authentication flow requires: first, the user authenticates through on-premises ADDS. Second, a Kerberos token is generated and forwarded to Azure files for access authorization. Since user 1 doesn't exist in on-premises AD, no sync, this authentication flow cannot complete. Azure files with ADDS authentication explicitly requires that identities used for access must be synced to Azure AD from the on-premises directory. In contrast, user 2, who has on-premises sync enabled equals yes, would be able to access file shares in Contoso 2024 because user 2's identity is synced from on-premises AD to Microsoft Entra ID and can complete the full authentication process. Why user 1 cannot access? User 1 is a cloud-only identity, no on-premises sync. Active Directory authentication requires synced hybrid identities from on-premises AD. Cloud-only Microsoft Entra ID accounts are not supported when using on-premises AD DS authentication. Quick takeaway: Azure files with on-premises Active Directory authentication equals hybrid identities only. Users without on-premises sync, cloud-only users like user 1, cannot access shares configured with ADDS authentication, even if they have Azure RBAC permissions. To get the free PDF or mock test, comment PDF or mock or both. I will share the downloadable link within the next 24 hours. Question 58. You have an Azure subscription linked to a hybrid Microsoft Entra tenant. The tenant contains the users shown in the following table. You create the Azure files shares shown in the following table. You configure identity-based access for Contoso 2024 as shown in the following exhibit. For the following statement, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. User 2 can access the content in Share 2. The options are A, yes, B, no. This question tests whether user 2, who has on-premises sync enabled, can access Share 2 in the Contoso 2024 storage account configured with Active Directory authentication. You need to verify that user 2 meets all requirements: hybrid identity status, share level permissions, and proper authentication method. Correct answer: yes. Yes, user 2 can access Share 2 because user 2 meets all the requirements for accessing Azure files with Active Directory authentication. Here's why user 2 can access. Looking at the configuration, user 2 has on-premises sync enabled yes, which means user 2 is a hybrid identity, synced from on-premises Active Directory to Microsoft Entra ID using Microsoft Entra Connect or Cloud Sync. This is the fundamental requirement for accessing Azure files with Active Directory Domain Services authentication. The exhibit shows that Contoso 2024 has Active Directory authentication enabled with Enable Permissions for all authenticated users and groups selected, and the default share level permission is set to Storage File Data SMB Share Contributor. This configuration means that all authenticated hybrid identities, like user 2, automatically get contributor level access to all file shares in Contoso 2024, including Share 2. The authentication flow works as follows. User 2 authenticates through on-premises ADDS, receives a Kerberos ticket, and Microsoft Entra ID validates the hybrid identity. Since user 2 is synced to Microsoft Entra ID and the default share level permission grants access to all authenticated users, user 2 can successfully access Share 2. Why user 2 can access? Unlike user 1, user 2 has on-premises sync enabled, hybrid identity. Active Directory authentication supports hybrid identities. Default share level permission grants Storage File Data SMB Share Contributor to all authenticated users and groups. Both Share 1 and Share 2 are in Contoso 2024, which has AD authentication enabled. Quick takeaway: user 2 hybrid identity with on-premises sync, plus Active Directory authentication enabled, plus default share level permissions for all authenticated users equals access granted. Unlike cloud-only user 1, hybrid user 2 can access file shares in AD-authenticated storage accounts. Question 59. You have an Azure subscription linked to a hybrid Microsoft Entra tenant. The tenant contains the users shown in the following table. You create the Azure files shares shown in the following table. You configure identity-based access for Contoso 2024 as shown in the following exhibit. For the following statement, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. User 2 can access the content in Share 3. The options are A, yes, B, no. This question tests whether User 2 can access Share 3, which is located in a different storage account, Contoso 2025, than the one with Active Directory authentication configured. Looking at the table, Share 3 is in Contoso 2025, while only Contoso 2024 has identity-based access configured, as shown in the exhibit. No, User 2 cannot access Share 3 because Share 3 is located in storage account Contoso 2025, which does not have identity-based authentication configured. Here's the critical detail. Looking at the Azure Files Shares table, Share 3 is in storage account Contoso 2025, while Share 1 and Share 2 are in Contoso 2024. The exhibit only shows that Contoso 2024 has Active Directory authentication enabled with share level permissions configured. Identity-based authentication, Active Directory, Microsoft Entra Domain Services, or Microsoft Entra Kerberos must be enabled separately for each storage account. Since Contoso 2025 does not have identity-based access configured, it operates in the default mode where file shares can only be accessed using the storage account key, not through Active Directory authentication with user credentials. Even though User 2 is a hybrid identity with on-premises sync enabled and has the necessary permissions to access shares in Contoso 2024, those permissions and authentication settings don't carry over to Contoso 2025. To enable User 2 to access Share 3, an administrator would need to navigate to Contoso 2025's file share settings, configure an Active Directory source, ADDS, Azure ADDS, or Microsoft Entra Kerberos, and then set up share level permissions for that storage account. Why User 2 cannot access Share 3? Share 3 is in Contoso 2025, not Contoso 2024. Only Contoso 2024 has Active Directory authentication enabled. Identity-based authentication is configured per storage account, not subscription-wide. Contoso 2025 has not configured status for identity-based access. Quick takeaway, identity-based authentication settings are per storage account. User 2 can access Share 1 and Share 2 in Contoso 2024 with AD enabled, but not Share 3 in Contoso 2025 with no identity authentication configured. Each storage account needs its own separate authentication setup. Question 60. You have a Microsoft Entra tenant that contains the users shown in the following table. The tenant contains the groups shown in the following table. Which groups can be deleted? The options are A, Group 1 only, B, Group 4 only, C, Group 1 and Group 3 only, D, Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, and Group 4. This question tests your understanding of Microsoft Entra ID group deletion restrictions, specifically regarding groups that have active licenses assigned to them. You need to identify which groups can be deleted by checking if they have any assigned licenses. Groups with licenses cannot be deleted until those licenses are removed first. Correct answer, Group 1 and Group 3 only. Only Group 1 and Group 3 can be deleted because they are the only groups that do not have active licenses assigned to them. Here's the critical rule from Microsoft documentation. It isn't possible to delete a group with an active license assigned. Microsoft requires that any licenses be removed from a group first before it can be deleted to prevent unintended deletion of groups used for license assignment. Looking at the groups table, Group 1 has assigned license equals none, can be deleted. Group 2 has assigned license equals Microsoft Entra ID P2, cannot be deleted. Group 3 has assigned license equals none, can be deleted. Group 4 has assigned license equals Microsoft Entra ID P2, cannot be deleted. When you try to delete a group with an active license in the portal, you'll see an error notification telling you to remove the licenses first. The same restriction applies when deleting groups through PowerShell or Graph API. Important note, the fact that Group 2 and Group 3 are nested, Group 2 is a member of Group 3 and Group 3 is a member of Group 4, does not affect deletion rules. The only factor that prevents deletion is whether the group itself has a direct license assignment, not its membership relationships with other groups. Why other groups cannot be deleted? Group 2 has Microsoft Entra ID P2 license assigned, must remove license first. Group 4 has Microsoft Entra ID P2 license assigned, must remove license first. Quick takeaway, Groups with active licenses equals cannot delete. Only groups with assigned license equals none can be deleted. Group 1 and Group 3 have no licenses, so only these two can be deleted. Thanks for watching today's session. If you found it helpful, make sure to check out our complete AZ-104 course. The link's in the description. Keep learning, and I'll see you in the next video.